Hey, I see a lot of participants joining us. Please do drop your introductions in the chat box. We'd like to know your name and where you're joining us from. If possible, you can also let us know what you do. Okay, okay, I'm seeing some messages. Hi, Syed. Hi, Sardar. You're great. Okay, so we are also live on LinkedIn and YouTube, and we have more participants joining us there. Once again, a warm welcome to everyone. Um, Let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Ananya, and I would be hosting the session on behalf of Simplilearn. Um, okay, someone saying that you're not able to hear. I hope my audio is clear to everyone else. You can react with a thumb
It's clear.
if yes. Okay. Um, okay. Great. Okay. Hi, Harish. Thank you for joining us. Great to have such a lively bunch of audience here. We have an amazing session planned with an amazing guest. So without further ado, let's look at the roadmap for the next hour. We'll start with understanding the current state of cyber threats in India, move into what cyber threat intelligence means, and look at where organizations are going wrong, and then get into the really interesting part, how AI is changing both sides of the equation, attack and defense. We'll also look at career paths in this space and how the IIITB's AI-powered cybersecurity program we are featuring today can help you get there. There will be time for Q&A at the end as well, so please stay tuned. So before we begin, a couple of ground rules for the session. All your questions go in the Q&A box and not in the chat box. The chat is pretty much for conversations, reactions, and sharing your thoughts. If you want our expert to answer something directly, please use the Q&A box. And if you'd like an attendance certificate today, stay until the end of the session. We will be launching a poll and you will need to submit your full name there to get an attendance certificate. Unfortunately, we will not be able to take any manual entry, so please ensure that you fill in the poll. And you will be getting the deck that we are presenting as well as a webinar recording over email to all those who stays through the session. So please stay tuned. Right, a quick word on Simplilearn before we begin. We have helped millions of professionals advance their careers across 150 countries, and we do it in partnership with some of the world's best institutions and companies. What it means for you today is everything that we discuss, the curriculum, the career pathways, the tools, everything is grounded in what the industry actually needs and not just, what looks good on a course outline. And yeah, speaking of partners, we are incredibly proud of the ecosystem that we have built, from globally renowned institutions to tech giants like Google, Microsoft, IBM, and AWS. These partnerships mean that our learners get curriculum that's not just current, but also co-created with the people who are actually building the future of tech and AI. Um, but the number worth noting is that our learners have reported a 50% average salary hike across categories. And if for us, this is not just a marketing figure. This is an outcome from people who've gone through structured, credentialed upskilling in high demand fields, exactly like what we will be covering today. And yes, now let's meet the expert who's going to make the next hour very, very valuable to us all. We have Dr. Harish Ramani as the expert. He's not just, a cybersecurity expert. He has a profound technical expertise and commitment to education as well. He holds a master's degree in computer science and technology from India and a PhD from Australia. His experience is very vast. It covers areas like security, networking, data communication, and data center management. Notably, he's also played like an important role in resolving corporate, financial, and cybercrime cases across various industries. Currently, Dr. Ramani leads as CEO and CTO at Global Cyber Corps in India, Chennai, India. His passion for education extends to his role as an adjunct faculty at IIIT Bangalore and the University of Wales as well, where he's training the next wave of cybersecurity professionals. Professor Harish, it's great to have you here. Would you like to add on to that introduction and say your hi to all our participants?
Yeah. Thank you, Ananya. Hi, all. Good evening. A warm welcome to all of you. I've got about 15 years of experience trying to learn how cybersecurity is being thriving for a very long time. So where I started and where things are moving right now are completely different. Probably you could say difference between Earth and Mars kind of things. And I think we're making a lot of differences today with respect to AI coming into picture. We should understand the importance, and we should also not forget the traditional conceptualization of cybersecurity, because uh, cybersecurity is still thriving more from the traditional practices. So I'm a person who still have not used not even one AI tool so far. So I don't know how many of you can agree to that. It's a real fact. It's been 3 years. I think the GPTs have come in, but I've not gone into any of those tools. But I'm still teaching AI. That's different. Understanding AI or slash using AI are two different things, which is what I completely believe in myself. And anybody who asks this question, I have no problem in sharing my computer, whether you could see any AI tools installed, or if you have forensic experience, you can do the forensics and also understand that. So I still believe that traditional methods are much more comprehensive. With the help of AI, I'm sure that it is going to make a lot of difference. Yeah, that's what I would like to start with.
Perfect. Yes, thank you, Professor. Before we get into the session, I see a couple of questions about how long this will be. This session, we aim to keep it within 1 hour. If there are a lot of questions, then we might extend by a few minutes. But yes, it will last about an hour. And yes, you will be getting the deck and the recording on email within the next 48 hours. Right. So we're going to start with understanding why this topic matters a lot right now. This next slide is one of those moments where, the numbers stop being just numbers. These are real breaches, real Indian organizations, and real consequences. So let's quickly look at what's actually been happening. Okay, so Aadhaar, Zomato, Air India, AIMS, Star Health, these are organizations that all of us, interact with directly. 81.5 crore Indians' personal data on the dark web, 4.5 million Air India passengers' data breached. AIMS servers down for 6 days while cancer patients waited. Star Health customer data sold through a Telegram chatbot. And here's what connects all of them. In almost every case, the data to detect these attacks existed before the breach happened. The problem was not like a lack of information, it was a lack of intelligence and the ability to act on that information in time. And that forms the crux of cyber threat intelligence. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about in detail today. Right. So we've just, shown you 5 major Indian breaches. So here's a simple question just to, start with a poll. When you last heard about a major data breach in the news, what was your first reaction? A, that's scary. I hope my data was not involved. My data is not compromised. Or B, that company should have just had better security. Or C, I wonder how long the attackers were already inside before anyone noticed. Or D, these things are unavoidable, inevitable, not much anyone can do. Just take a moment and let us know your answer in the chat box. We will, take forward the session according to the answers. Okay, I see some answers coming in. A lot of you are saying C, which is great. Okay. Okay, we have a lot more participants here, and I see just a few handful who have responded. Okay, so right. Okay. So if some of you are thinking about A, it's a natural human reaction. But here's the thing, your data was probably involved. The question is whether anyone knew in time to limit the damage. If you're thinking of B, then you're not wrong, but better security is where most organizations actually stop. They deploy more tools, they buy more feeds, and breaches still keep happening, right? So we're going to discuss about that in detail. If you answered C, like most of you have already answered, you're probably already thinking like a threat intelligence analyst. This instinct, how long were they already in, is exactly the question CTI exists to answer. And if you answered D, by the end of the session, we hope to change your mind, because inevitability is what attackers want you to believe. Okay, so I think I've taken enough time. Without further ado, we can start with Professor's remarks as well. So, Professor, we're going to talk about this topic a lot in detail, but I want to start with like the fundamentals. Cyber threat intelligence is one of those terms that gets used a lot, but could mean different things. So, how would you explain it to someone who is hearing it for the first time today?
I mean, this is all about how you wanted to keep yourself ready. Okay. First thing I would wanted to put the word would be readiness. Okay. So whether you wanted to go ahead with evidence, you want to go with data, or you want to go with tools. So any of these things, your first understanding should be identifying the ideal gaps in the scenario and to make sure that are you ready for it. Because I would probably give a similar example in line with COVID. Okay. But COVID was one of, we've not come across something like that probably in the last 100 years time, right? Probably previous generation has gone through quite a number of issues like that. Ebola kind of things happened in, I think, the African region. But those were all small things where not many people got affected. And the spread was not also not like how COVID spread. Today, cybersecurity is unfortunately has become a COVID kind of spread. I'm talking about the negative angle where the threat spread is all about. So you wanted to work out based on tools. I think you need to be literally be aware of what tool are you deploying and whether the tool is ideal for you to really deploy the same thing. Okay. And then you wanted to keep your data up and running. I think the data matters a lot. So where you wanted to keep the data. I think today a lot of people are also talking about PII, the personally identifiable information. So when you talk about threat intelligence and your data being lost with all the statistical data that was provided a few slides ago, is all in connection with how much of these data being taken and how did it go out. And all of these things matters with basic security coming into existence. So you need to know who are all your threats. That's where your threat intelligence comes into existence, and how these threats can be utilized by somebody at various times, right? So readiness is definitely one thing where you need to have adequate knowledge about your environment. And it's obviously not just about data alone. You need to know about the context too, where the threat is, how the threat is, whether I've seen people talking about data on the cloud. And they said, no, 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 I don't need to worry about anything. Every data is on the cloud. What if that entire cloud is being taken over by somebody else, right? So these are some of the easiest questions that we could probably ask at various times. And how much of your data is important to somebody is also intel. We need to be aware of such scenarios too. See, when I work with organizations, it's different scenario. When I work with government, it's very different. When I work with institutions and research, angle, I think that's completely different. I could see that the difference between core, mantle, and crust kind of difference, where you are in the topmost layer, you just worry about what it is inside, and then you don't really need to know what is there. That's where institutions typically work with. And then you go a bit more, that's where governments are. Government are concerned, but nobody is willing to take up a responsibility outrightly. And then we come into the organization spectrum. That's exactly where multiple differential organizations come into existence, very vertical based. So we wanted to be sure of how organizations want to probably secure themselves is one side, for which without threat intel, you're not going to plan your readiness very well. So whatever knowledge that you have, that has to be put into a single, probably one single table, and then do your brainstorming and come to a conclusion. I think if you're going to do that, I think your answers are going to be much more critical, and you will have outcomes also to be accepted at various times. So that is what probably I would let you know in terms of conclusion as it is, and that's what is also happening outrightly.
Hmm. Thank you for that definition, clear definition. So, I believe that there are like more levels to threat intelligence. So, if you could talk us through that, that would be great.
Absolutely, absolutely. See, whenever we are trying to talk about threat intel, as I said, readiness comes into picture at first, right? So you need to plan, like how we plan our investments, how you plan, how you wanted to get educated, how you wanted to grow your family, your organization. So with all these things, there are obviously three steps to it. So one is immediate. And one is like, okay, I'm going to plan for 2, 3 months time, and then I'm going to plan long term. So immediate, which is where the tactical workaround typically comes into existence, where identification of those threats come in, and then basic analysis starts. That's where tactical analysis come in. We in fact talk tactical slash transactional, because once you're initiating something, then obviously transactional outcomes comes into existence. That's first one. Number two, where we have operational analysis, where it is going to be bringing into types of frameworks into workaround. So there are quite a number of frameworks that we use. We all know, I'm not sure how many of you really understand the importance of these frameworks today, where we have something as NIST as a framework, National Institute of Science and Technology, Standards and Technology Science. They've given their frameworks in line with it. And we have got something which is what today we are all calling it as the holy book, as MITRE framework, where we talk about TTP, which is tactics, techniques, procedures. So where we have techniques and then we have sub techniques also incorporated into it. So how much of your knowledge is in alignment with your operations, then that is exactly what you're going to secure your organization or your environment as it is. And then obviously you take all these problems to your strategic discussions, which is in your boardroom, or could be your detailed discussion with your managements or top level stakeholders, where they'll have to start pumping in money. It could be resource based, it could be cost based, it could be where you will have to, you're not ready today, where you don't know where you are standing. You may have to start working out something from the scratch and then take it forward step after step. So where we call them maybe 12 months, 24 months kind of analysis, because cybersecurity is one thing where many people don't understand. It's not, you can complete it in overnight. It is a roadmap, right? And you wanted to do something, you wanted to probably start sometime. And I've seen a lot of people saying that, no, we wanted to secure ourselves, we want to secure ourselves. These terms are repetitively being spoken out. But did they ever start? No. I think that's where, again, you wanted to get into your operational workaround. You need to collect adequate data. You need to analyze those data. And you also need to make sure that you process those data based on the context that you have. As long as you are in alignment with these three things, I think you are good with your levels, and you all also know all the stakeholders, starting from an analyst to a board member, will be aware of what is happening realistically. I think that way, it's clearly also been given right now. So we can also take it up with that, as one is mindset, two is how you want to put that into place. So that's where my conclusion is on this.
Perfect. Okay, so here in the slide, there are misconceptions that seem almost universal. So, Professor, from your experience, which one of these is like the most dangerous one, like the one that gets organizations into trouble?
Honestly, all five of them are damn dangerous. Okay, to be precise, but I'll give you analysis very simple in that. So first thing is a lot. I'll probably, out of this five, I will tell you which one is on the priority list of 1 to 5. Probably I could align it in that way. Okay, instead of just telling them what is realistically tough. Okay, so first thing is uh, thinking that somebody, somewhere, someone is going to handle, which is where AI will handle threat detection. We need fewer analysts. I think that's a wrong thing. AI is going to help you identify, but it is not going to complete the process for you. I think that's where today everybody is talking about. I was handling a couple of classes for IITM on AI in cybersecurity, where people were asking, we are talking about AI in the very naive state in the world of cybersecurity. How are you starting to rely on them? I said, yes, it is. But wherever it is making an impact, we have started to utilize it. That's where it is coming into existence. Where you have identification, you have detection. I think AI is being super good with respect to what we are talking about. But you still need someone to identify whether it is a false positive or not. So that's why we cannot just like that discount whatever that is being provided straight away. So as long as we are aware, okay, we use AI for a maximum capacity, and then we also have a human intervention, I think then we take it up with much more adequacy in line with it. So that's number one. So priority on the list is obviously AI. Number two is we have 12 security tools deployed and we are well protected. That's another very wrong misconception, Because whenever people say that we wanted to deploy on tools, which means the people process technology equation, technology only contributes to about 4% of the problems. And process contributes to about, say, 8% of the problems. So, which one contributes to the rest of it? It's all about people. But 88% of problems are being contributed by the people as such. So, if you're going to just deploy those tools, and who's going to manage those tools? You can't say that no, the tools are going to be managed by AI. That's point number two, where it'll create a lot of nonsense. Okay. Third one is which is we subscribe to a threat feed, and we have threat intel, cyber threat intel, and the threat feed is going to provide all the data, and we are just going to follow whatever that is being given there as a holy book, like process. So you're not sure one threat book is going to typically give you whatever you want. One thread feed is going to provide you everything in the world. In fact, one common example as a security professional we all speak about is never rely on one particular tool for your entire organization. What if that one tool goes down? All other tools are also going to be down, right? Or all other tools are not going to be effective, then you are not going to be making a difference. So you cannot rely on one particular tool at any point of time. You need to have a differential stake. So these three are, I would call them the notorious things on the top three. And then typically you have cyber threats are IT problem is a lot of people keep that mindset. Again, people process technology equation comes in, 88% are people's problem. So vulnerabilities happen in the world with respect to cyber environment. 88% are contributed by the 10-fingered, 20-fingered animals. Typically, we don't realize that we are humans. We are just animals when we are clicking a link. So that's exactly how we can differentiate it, because we don't put our brains into it. Just putting something else and clicking it or giving the OTP or anything for that matter. So I've been working with the police department for a very long time, and I understand how people, I mean, you can't even imagine how this person could have given the data just like that and could have lost 50, 60 lakh rupees. All right. So this way you can also identify it. And the last one obviously is we haven't been breached so far and our security is working. That is a mindset. As long as you're not breached, I'll say, okay, fantastic. I think somebody is around you, all your good self that you have done, it's also coming back. We could also call it as don't stop doing good things because your karma is going to hit you back. So that's exactly what we could say it as an example as such. But yes, that's how I could probably put it into into a priority based workaround for organizations, institutions, and everybody to follow it up. I think explanation also says something, but explanation is something people can always read about with the data statistical analysis. Right.
I think you made more sense of this slide than the question that I posed. Thank you for that. We have touched upon this a little bit, but if you can, like, also help us understand what exactly is going wrong. Like, where are organizations going wrong, and like, what gap is it, like, creating? That'd be great, because we keep hearing about new cyber breaches and threats almost every other week.
True. See, technically, a lot of organizations think that what they are doing is right. Okay. And they are continuing to follow that. I think that is an issue which I personally have come across quite a number of places. Uh, I'll because this slide is in fact manufactured exactly for the problem statement as it is. Because problem versus reality. The Venn diagram itself says, in fact, you could even push the reality to the right hand side, honestly, because reality and problem are completely different things. So it's like I've gone to a doctor with a stomach pain, okay? And then doctor said, oh, don't worry, nothing is happening. You're all completely good. Your hands are working pretty fine. It's that kind of a solution, right? So I have a problem on my stomach, and my doctor, I've told him, I think I've got stomach pain. Then he started seeing my hands and then say that, don't worry, your elbow is pretty strong. You can still continue to hit a couple of more sixes. If you're a cricketer or if you're a tennis player, you can still play good smashes. So the answer towards problem statement is problem versus reality online. Okay. So you've listed out a number of things, right? So we have SOC teams receive 10,000 alerts. I think that's exactly where AI is playing a difference in qualitative analysis. Then we have threat feeds delivered through indicators of compromises, where we have thousands of them. And that's exactly where we are trying to bring in, where you need to know AI. As I said in the start, you must know AI, but you cannot just live with AI. The previous slide and the current slide are directly connected in terms of deployment of tools, deployment of AI, at the same time, security budgets. which is another very big pain area for the strategic partners, strategic players to not contribute, not be in a position to contribute, as the core gap is not just increasing, the gap inside the gap itself is increasing, where means the connecting uh, things between problem versus reality is not happening. Your Venn diagram is, I would say, is more generous in the process in terms of explaining what we are trying to do it, but in reality it is much more different than it. And then obviously maturity comes out very handy, right? Fewer than 5% are actually investigated. Actually, yes, because we don't have the courage to investigate and identify what could have gone wrong and trying to provide a scenario for the same. For which again, your threat intel is the first thing you'll have to start with. Most are ingested and not analyzed because you have too much of problems and you don't know which problem to start analyzing, and then you're still getting problems after problems after problems. It's like in a police station where they keep receiving thousands of cases. Whichever case there is a high profile connection involved, then you take that case and then start processing that. That's exactly how today's security operations are operating. So I've been operating as security operations for more than 8 years now. I know what kind of problems we face and how we have matured today over a period of time by learning. So the only call that we could take up is going on undetected breach for 200 days, whether you wanted it to be a 0 day or you wanted to just be lethargic or you wanted to work out being trained. I think that's exactly where I would definitely suggest programs like this are more important for people to be updated, professionals to be updated in the process. So then you can put in actionable intelligence. You can then concentrate to the next level, which is threat and threat hunting. Eventually, one after the other will come in. So it's all about how you want to take it, how the problems are to be looked at versus how the reality is. That would be my conclusion on that.
Perfect. Thank you. So now
Sure.
that we've understood the gap and the easier it becomes, to understand why threat intelligence matters as well. So, but Professor, just to sort of conclude the segment, it'll be great if you could summarize why CTI is like so important to all organizations, and for a cybersecurity professional, how important is this as a skill or an area of knowledge to develop?
See, ideally, with respect to our threat intelligence coming in, where learning matters a lot. I've been repeatedly saying that it's more of practical analysis where learning comes in. Okay. Eventually, you'll have to arrive at tools. There's no option about it because if you want to do things faster, but you can't just identify a tool and rely on the tool completely. So I've defined my own statement, which is start with the concept, go to methods, and arrive at tools. So if you are clear with your conceptualization, all right, then you can avoid uh, the later surprises, negative surprises. That's where it starts. Then you get into the method. So which method is suitable for you and for the organization or for the teams? It's not individual, you in the sense I'm talking about an organization as such. So as long as the people are clear about the methodology that they're going to start putting into place, then identifying the right tool and putting that into place makes a big time difference. Then training somebody on the tool is going to be easier. In fact, a lot of people are only being trained on tools. So we keep talking to a lot of people in a regular basis. So everybody is interested only to concentrate on the tools. What if that tool is going to become obsolete over a period of time? So threat intelligence is one area where people will have to start working out on understanding what realistic threat intelligence is and then identify the tool based on parameters. See, for people understanding, it goes different, right? So whenever we are having breaches, they don't inform, right? I've known probably 150 plus cases I've handled myself. It starts saying that a hacker, an attacker sitting inside the network, doing Reiki, doing recon for a period of 6 up to 6 months and initiating an attack. So once you know that there is a hacker sitting in, or you don't know when the hacker is sitting in, there are two different aspects. First, allowing the hacker to enter in itself is really not good. And then you allow the hacker to sit in for a longer period of time and take over is something which is definitely not being appreciated. So threat intelligence to start with is definitely important. As I said, threats, in fact, I would define a formula again where you have a threat actor A threat actor design a threat from, probably you could also say threat actor slash threat source, who designs a threat from the threat where you have, if you have a vulnerability, then that is going to pose you a risk. So if you are clear with your identification of threats, then your intel is good, where you conceptually, methodologically, and tools wise, then you can put all of these things one after the other, right? Your security team is going to be aware of what they're going to do. And at the end, the tool that you're going to use, whether it is going to be, obviously, we're talking about threat intelligence, which is more relevant to security operations. So you'll be using SIEM, security information and event management. Today, it's not SIEM anymore. It's SIEM with SOAR, security orchestration, automation, and response. And we also have quite a few more tools that are now being inducted into it, which are probably, we call them network detection and response, user behavior analysis. So all of these things comes one after the other. So CTI trained professionals can clearly tell, right, whether there is background noise or not, or whether there is something that is smoking. If there is smoke, there is obviously some, at some point of time, there's a fire that is going to come up, right? So you don't want a smoke to be inside your organization for the fire to blow later point of time. So we wanted to just align these things in sequence and make sure that people are to be aware of. So if they are just going to learn what is threat intel alone, right, they're not going to get what they want. As you can clearly see, you have open source intelligence already available, which is contributing to threat intel. But what they'll get to see are only junk of tools. There are 1,000 tools exist there. And I'll telling you 45 to 50% of the tools don't even work, or they're region specific. So you can't just rely on tools alone. That's why I said you need to know the concept, the method, and of course the tool. Then you will arrive at what you really want. So your adversaries becomes more easier to identify straight away.
Perfect. That's a very comprehensive summary. Thanks for that. So let's shift gears a little bit. So we've established why CTI matters and where organizations are falling short. Now let's explore what this means for people's careers. Like, because the gap between the organization's need and what the talent pool looks like, is pretty wide. So Professor, let's talk about where opportunities are. So what are some career pathways you're seeing in the cyber field specific to threat intelligence or at a wider scale as well?
Quite a number of things are going around. Okay, we've got a lot of positions that are currently open. As you can see, there are about, as we've mentioned, only about 6 of them in line, which are directly connected to people. But in real world, there are not just 6, there are more than 12, 13 positions that are directly available, and which are contributing also for our goodness. Okay, in fact, we have AI in the program, right? We've known what AI is actually contributing towards it. So with a threat intelligence analyst is one side here, where we need to incorporate AI into it, because if you start to receive a lot of threats in line, then you won't be able to get going. So threat analyst is a starting position where you could actually get started, and then you can keep moving step after step. In fact, there is also a position called as, used to be a position called as SOC analyst. I'm not sure how many of them here are aware of. That position is almost gone out. It's because of the AI's inclusion into the picture. And we used to have somebody as L1 analyst. Today, we are not talking about L1 analyst at all. We're only talking about who can be specialized, like threat intelligence analyst, threat hunting analyst, who can perform operations to make sure that we arrive at solutions, right? And then it goes to, obviously you can start to lead, develop, and get to become an incident ready person. So once a moment you are incident ready, you know exactly what to do. We can probably talk about incident response lead and incident management lead. In fact, we also have positions like incident handler. It is not very popularly available even today, but it is one of the highest paid jobs in the market, where you could easily be get going with not just money as such. It also gives you a lot of respect going forward in the same line. So that way, people can say, okay, I'm starting right now, and where I wanted to end, where I want to probably lead myself into it, obviously to a consultant or a CISO as it is. But there are two things and two aspects to it. A CISO is a person who understand from a documentation perspective more often today, because they end up answering to the regulatory or to the stakeholders kind of things. But when it comes to the consultant, where they'll have to be hands-on, they can still continue to be enjoying the core security parameters of security operations. They'll have to play around, and threat intel would be the path that they'll have to start taking it today. And obviously, I skipped the security architect position, because an architect is one person who takes anything and everything into consideration whenever there is a design supposed to be initiated. So as long as a person is working on a job, then the eventuality is solution, like solutioning, like you'll have to provide a solution. And that solution automatically comes from somebody who has got responsibility, accountability, and ownership. Quite a number of things comes in this life cycle. A person who is taking up a threat intelligence role are responsible, are accountable, and also must carry ownership. Hence, it is one of the highest paid job in the market, and there is also a good amount of demand that is also there in many companies. I've seen over 7,000 plus jobs just today, because I wanted to be updated with the data. So I've just looked at how many threat analysts, how many threat intelligence, threat hunting people. I think over 7,000 plus jobs are available right now in this particular domain alone. And it starts from startups to tier one companies. So the salaries are also being very acceptable, and the job is also being challenging. It's not like you keep looking at the monitor screen again and again. So that way it's more challenging and more operable. Yeah.
Perfect. And an interesting point that you mentioned was, the need for specialization in the field. So if we can, talk a little bit more about what are the skills or like, areas that a professional need to, learn or upskill in, so that like, they differentiate themselves in the job market, like whether they are looking to enter the field or like looking to grow further in the cyber field, like what areas should they craft themselves on?
Sure. I think I've already told about concept, method, and tools, but how do you put that into industry acceptable manner is what you can differentiate yourself among the crowd. All right. So we start with one side as the standards. I think a lot of people miss that plot. Very often they end up missing the plot, where there are quite a number of standards that exist. As I said, NIST has got standards. We've got MITRE framework. We've got the critical security controls 18. So there are quite a number of list of standards that exist, where if you can align stating that I know certain parameters, I know certain concepts, I know some tools. At the same time, I also know how to align these things with the standards in the market. Like we've clearly mentioned that one is technical foundation being very strong. I think that is something we can learn by joining, just sitting in programs like this, and you can take it up. But how you can trade, how you can use that to uh, probably tell people like, hey, I'm completely different, and I've also gone to the same school, but I'm doing something very different, is because you can align yourself with the requirement in the market. Somebody is saying, hey, I know I've done these programs, I know I've got experience. This is the common resumes that we generally look into it. But what is required? How many attacks did I stop? Okay, how many attacks did I stop, and what was the tat, and what did I do in terms of stopping that particular attack? I followed the frameworks. I've made sure that I was in alignment with the intelligence, whatever I've gained, and I've used quite a few tools. So you don't need to tell them that I know 20 tools, I know 30 tools kind of things. Even if you know two or three tools which can solve most of the problems, I think organizations are definitely interested in terms of identifying that person as the person, whoever is required to be fitting into that position. Obviously, AI. So I'll have to definitely conclude today, because if it is going to be on network design or any other positioning, AI is not making a difference. But in the security operations, in threat intelligence, in threat hunting, I think identification of an adversary, in fact, working on the indicators of compromise or indicators of attack, I think AI is definitely playing a very big role. You don't need to be an AI model writer. You don't need to even know how to train a data. That's fine. But if you know how to use the existing tools in AI into the threat intel processing, into threat hunting processing, And sometimes we're also using it in user behavior analytics. So that way it is making a huge difference. So you want to be unique, I think you just have to carry all of these things in your hat. As simple as that. So it's just going to add feather. Each feather in your crown is going to make you different at various times. Because we've been interviewing a lot of people, I'm telling you, what we want is really not happening, because they're just going by, unfortunately, the GPTs of the world rather than the AI that we use on the real world, right? Resumes are being written by GPTs today. So that's something which everybody hates, all right? People really forget how to write 2 lines on technical documentation. They just go prompt engineering and then start working it out. I think that is making a difference. That's why people are not finding it easier to get in, and I think they're just making it tougher themselves.
Okay, I think your point on AI sets the perfect context for our next segment.
Yep.
A lot of people might be more interested in this segment as well, because AI has like been changing everything, and specifically in the cyberspace on both sides as well. So it's making like defenders faster, but also making attackers more capable. So we can get a bit more into this, Professor. How exactly has AI fit into, or rather transform the threat intelligence workflow? I know you mentioned this in bits and
I know.
pieces
Yep.
through, but if you could let us know specifically about threat intelligence workflow and AI.
Sure. I'll make it really short because it's going to be just a repetitive of what I've said. I'll just connect the dots, as you said, right? So we have automated threat collection, which is making a huge difference where your data is being collected from. That's one area where you have the data and you should know where the data is and you collect the data. That's from a technical front. Once this is good, then you'll obviously have to know. Probably sometimes we also put the word instinct into place, but not everybody carries instinct. They rely on methods and experience, and we also call them signature based, pattern based, and heuristics based. So these 3 things comes into existence, right, where we can start taking that into consideration. It could be from deep web, it could be from dark web. It doesn't matter. Wherever you're getting your data from, you need to align that with the context, whether it is a threat to your organization or not. If that is not there, I think then you're good. And finally, you connect that with your response platform, whatever tools that you wanted to work out from, right? You need to write your playbooks. If you are connecting these 3 things, I think your AI is going to make a huge difference, because it can process anything and everything which is falling into that particular bucket and said, okay, don't worry about it, this is completely been taken care of. But there is also a process called as review by the human, and by human is definitely required. So with that, we'll be easily configuring and sitting and relaxing to concentrate on something that is more serious, or maybe regulate and automate more or such issues in the future. So this way, I think it's easier to work around. So it's more of connecting the dots as such.
Great, thank you for that. And now we have what we have here is a detailed timeline that sort of illustrates how a cyber breach happens. So from recon that happens on day one to initial access on day 14,
Yep.
lateral movement between days 21 to 90, exfiltration between days 91 to 195, and then discovery around day 196. This timeline is there just to sort of illustrate how AI also works on both sides at every stage. Professor, my question here is a little, different from the content as such. So, if you were advising an organization, which AI-powered capability would you suggest that they, most focus on? Like, say, anything from the slide, that could give them the most protection.
I'm not really sure whether I can answer that question, because uh, the more, see, we are working on many models, unfortunately, today. Okay. Every organization or every tool uses their tool, their models as such. So I mean, I can directly say that the answer is not going to be a straight one as it is. But how you're going to take it is all going to be based on whether you wanted to defend, right? And defend is kind of protect scenario. And then you also need to start on the offensive parameters. So how you wanted to use this towards your offensive parameter is concerned. So Working out on the answer, I think I've not answered that question, which I'm well aware, but it's a pretty vague in terms of operational as a question too. So probably we could ask this question to probably people whoever is working on in their regular operations as such, because optimization is one thing that we will concentrate more. Okay, regularization of or probably we'll call them sequencing and then doing the regularization of the work, and bring lot of tools and then connect those tools into place. So that's how I could probably give you again. It's more of vague, because maybe I would say in that way I'm not an AI guy, right? Or I'm not doing research on AI as it is. So we use whatever that is coming into the market and testing whether it is doing good job or not. So in from that angle, probably my answers are not in this angle is not going to be as adequate as it is. But this is going to definitely give understanding for the people to work more on this platform. Somebody is now getting into cybersecurity, or somebody has got some few years of knowledge in the world of cybersecurity, and they've already interested in AI and then model or understanding, developing kind of things, right? So this is a great area for research. In fact, I know of quite a number of people whom I've been advising on AI based research with respect to cybersecurity, and every day they're coming out with problems which are mind boggling, because I wouldn't have even given a thought about it even in my wildest dreams. And then they're coming up with some algorithm and says that this algorithm is working, or you do want to probably test it. So it's an open question, and for everybody also it is an open question, not to me alone, but for a lot of them. Yeah, I'll probably put a, you can say it a pass kind of things.
This is just my, the context was just to try to understand like the different roles that AI plays in, when a breach happens. Right. So I think that brings us to the last segment. We've spent about 45 minutes building a picture of what's at stake, where the gaps are, and what the right skills look like. Now we'll take just a few minutes to show you how Simplilearn's program in partnership with Triple IT Bangalore addresses these gaps systematically. I'll start with a brief overview, and then Professor will be able to give much detailed understanding. So four things that stand out about this program. First, it's not just cybersecurity; it's cybersecurity plus AI. We've seen that it's come to an extent where you probably cannot separate the two anymore. So second aspect here is that the curriculum includes CEH V13 AI certification with EC Council, which is one of the most recognized credentials in the field globally. Third, and this is one of the aspects that matters most for people who are worried about landing a job, is that you get an AI powered job assistance from Simplilearn. I will talk a bit more in detail on that later. And fourth, this is a program that has 30 plus global case studies, 100 plus guided assignments, 30 plus tools that you get exposure to. So this is it involves a lot of learning by doing, not just learning by watching slides or listening. And speaking of which, I think we can get into understanding the curriculum much more in detail from Professor. Professor Harish, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. See, I think we have to understand quite a number of concepts before we get into becoming a threat intelligent professional. Okay, so you need to understand about infrastructure, where you have networks coming into place. Then you have network security. That is where the depth is pretty much being arrived as it is, right? So you also need to understand a bit of scripting, where you can start to develop something of your own. Because today we are talking about again AI, so development is also important. So you don't need to do coding, but basic scripting with one-liner kind of commands is going to add a lot of parameters, and that's what the program has in it. One. And then we talk about securing it. So what are we securing it? We need enterprise level understanding. So enterprise infrastructure security is one area where it'll give you the 360-degree angle of what an enterprise has as device, as operations, as process. So that would ideally be covered on that. Then we have application and application security, which is where we call them. We need to understand about the WAFs and how secure coding kind of things are there, right? We're not going to go in depth into coding parameters. I think a lot of you may have that as a doubt, but it has its own understanding of basic commands and basic line items of scripting. So where you're scripting and this one would be in alignment with that. Then you have AI, as I think I've spoken enough of that today. So we need to understand about the foundations of AI and how this is making an impact in the world of cybersecurity. So the foundation of AI is as it is, AI as it is. And then we're going to use what? Right? Are we going to use a model? Are we going to use a technique? Are we going to use something that is like machine learning or it is natural language processing? So it talks about AI as it is and then takes you to the connection where cybersecurity is, right? And then we have AI part, then we have blue team exercises where it's more of incident readiness, right? Because with CTI, incident readiness is where I started with, and that's like more important in alignment with that. And when you have AI is going to add power to that, right? So even it is 20% powerful, you still have only 80% of job to be conducted. Imagine yourself like 0% versus 20%, you have somebody covering it up. You still can concentrate on the rest of the things pretty easily. And then you have ransomware, malware analysis, how adversaries are playing a role and how attacks are making a difference with offensive security. Then traditional hacking, where with the consent of the owner, how you do vulnerability analysis, then penetration testing, we call them vulnerability assessment and penetration testing. And parameters of that is also important as the steps and how reconnaissance can be done with tools and how you can use the information that is already being captured. Then we have red team, as I said, blue team. Then obviously you have red teaming, which is more of exploitation. It could be on a network or onto an individual. Then coming finally into your cybersecurity LLMs and adversaries, where AI as it is also to be learned and connect those. Remember the answer that I gave. I'm not practicing AI, but somebody is creating something and then I've been asked to test. My team is asked to test, right? So that is a difference here where you yourself can create your AI and bring that AI and test it yourself. So you know the entire ambit of AI adversaries and how it is making a difference in terms of detection mechanism with or putting into the cybersecurity as the subject as it is. And then finally, you do your own project, which is going to be the real world scenario where you'll get to understand how this is going to make a difference when you get to apply that in the real world. Because what you need to do and what you're supposed to do are to be the same, right? But in academia, what we study and in organizations, when we come and work, those are two different things. But here, what you study versus what you work are exactly the same. That difference is something you will not find out at the end of the program. So that's the base the program is being designed so far in that line, right? So with this, we will be able to also have a lot of master classes. Then you'll have people talking about things. Then you have professors coming in. You will hear it from the best of the people. See, I'm not best in everything. Okay, I know that. And I also accept the fact that whatever I'm not best in, I'll probably continue to learn on that. Everything we'll have to learn, but you can't be a best in everything. You can't be a like jack of all, master of none kind of combinations will not work here. Try to learn something which is directly connected to you, and then the subject will also take you forward with adequate knowledge. And of course, interest plays a very important role. So whenever I teach, whenever I'm talking both ways, one is teaching in a class or giving a lecture into an organization or delivering a practice based analysis, I said only one thing: if you're interested, take it up and concentrate on that. Probably you will start, you may not be able to understand it in the first instance, but you'll be able to take it forward straight away, probably at a later point of time. Cybersecurity is a subject, as I said, it's a roadmap. You won't get it on the day one, it's okay, but you will still be able to get it on day 15, day 20 kind of things. Common sense plays a very important role there. I think that's what the entire highlights of the core modules are. And you will also get to understand more from, of course, the website too, as it is.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And in the next three slides, we have the skills that the program will be focusing on, the tools, case studies, and projects. So your inputs on those.
Yeah, I mean, you have to start anywhere with your own computer, which is your operating system as it is host server, okay? And then you go beyond. So I'll put it in four different, probably verticals as it is. That's how I learned cybersecurity. So we had network security, which is infrastructure and network security. That's where it's the first set. And then it goes into application security because you need to know how the network is helping the application to work, okay? Even for the network to work, you need to have a firmware, which is also an application. So network security, Second pillar is application security. And then you have the third pillar, which is what we call them as security operations and its monitoring and analysis, where sometimes we also incorporate where forensics comes into existence, where you will touch base on that as part of the program. And the last vertical is generally the risk and compliance, which is more of theoretical process oriented angle. But the first three vertical is what is required to be a core cybersecurity professional. When you call core security, which is we call them data security, we have core security. So core is more of technical and data is more of documentation, process, awareness, protocols, procedures, kind of things coming in. So each of these things, whatever you're going to learn, learn it the way as it is, right? You may also probably want to do a lot of unlearning as the program gets going. So you please learn. The biggest thing for any human being to do is unlearning. And if you know how to unlearn yourself, I think you will come up with the absolute colors for sure in time. I think the tools gives you a lot of connection there straight away. Okay, industry tools, you need to learn open source and also commercial proprietary tools at the same time, right? It's a combination of open source and commercial. Even when we do penetration testing, when we do testings, we use both proprietary tools and open source at various times. And then you will eventually have to connect those with all those case studies that you will have to probably go through it. I think we started with quite a few case studies about Aadhaar data went off, right? And then we had AIMS attack, ransomware attack. I'm not sure how many of you are aware. After AIMS got attacked, okay, hospital industry was considered to be critical information infrastructure. We call them CII, right? As a matter of fact, many hospitals are completely don't even know something like that exists. So this is the world that we are living in. So if you go to a diagnostic center and wanted to get your blood tested, you ask somebody who's sitting there, probably not the technician, lab technician, you ask somebody who's sitting there in front of a computer, do you know what is CIA? You are falling under critical information infrastructure. They'll say that I don't know anything, you ask my manager, right? That is the awareness that people are carrying today. So if you encounter something like that, I think yes. And I want to give you one piece of additional information. I'll take 1 more minute, Ananya, for that. If you go to a pharmacy and you buy medicines, and that particular medicine you buying it regularly, maybe not for you, maybe for your relative, for your grandparents, for your mother, for your father, whomever it is, and you get to buy that regularly, and you get the discount by providing your phone number. And please understand, none of these pharmacy chains have got security parameters aligned with, because they are not having any regulatory compliance coming into their picture. If it is a financial organization or NBFC, yes, it is. But for other than that, it is all completely blank. So if you're going to do that, and that data is going to go out, and they get to see that a particular medicine is going to be being purchased by somebody very regularly, then you go and apply for a medical insurance, your premium will be high tomorrow. Don't get surprised, your friend may get a premium that is lower because your friend did not give the phone number or didn't buy medicine from that pharmacy. But if you encounter to do that, please be prepared for that. I think that is a very big difference, because pharmacies data they don't know the word called security exists with them. I've seen it with at least 20 plus pharmacies all around places wherever I've gone. They don't have antivirus in their systems. They just use a very simple proprietary software created by some third party. Whether it is being tested or not, only God knows. So for 5% or 10% of your discounts that you wanted to achieve, probably give a phone number that you don't want you do, or you're not using it for anything else. That's fine. Be a little intelligent with that. But harsh reality is people don't know what's happening. We're talking about enterprise level, but it is also important for to be individually how you can secure yourself. That's some probably you can say it as a selfish behavior. I don't want people to just like that lose data as it is. Yeah.
I think you just gave a preview into what it is, how it is to learn through case studies. And yeah, we've established that the program takes a very practical approach to learning these concepts, which is great. And ultimately, it comes down to outcomes, and we have like a couple of success stories from our alumni here. Sharad landed her cybersecurity engineer role at UL Solutions with a 250% salary hike after the program, and Sandeep Sundrani moved into an executive director and cybersecurity consultant role after graduating. Both of their testimonials point to similar things, which is which are practical modules, hands-on lab work, and career support also that actually worked for them. And yes, speaking of career support, here is the support structure around the program. You get a dedicated cohort manager, who will be with you throughout. And this is like, a person, not a chatbot that you might find elsewhere. You get mentoring sessions with subject matter experts like Professor Harish mentioned. There are flexi learn options, interview prep, and mock assessments as well, and technical capability enhancement also from instructors who have worked in the field. So this is, the program is built for working professionals, as well as beginners, people who have jobs, people who have commitments. This is applicable for everyone. Right. So the program is priced at 2,32,000 rupees for Indian learners, and if that number seems large, there are also installment options which brings it to 10,388 rupees per month. You can scan this QR code for full details of the program, including the exact curriculum, the faculty, the breakdown of the timelines, upcoming batch dates, and any current offers also that are applicable. I am also sharing the link in the chat to access more details about the program. Right. So with that, I'm going to launch a poll to take your interest in enrolling in the program. All you have to do is click on yes or no. If you have any queries or you're unsure, you want to know more details, you can still vote yes, because our expert advisor will be getting in touch with you to guide you further. And in case if you're voting no, feel free to drop a note in the chat as to what is holding you back. We would genuinely, like to understand what your reasons are, and see what we can do about it. Meanwhile, Professor, while that poll is ongoing, we can take a look at a couple of questions that have come our way. So I'm going to read these questions out. Okay, so the dwell time range to detect a cyber attack is 100 to 200 days. So what happens when an attack goes undetected for more than 200 days? Does it become beyond repair, or is it just like more hard to fix?
See, the end result is what matters a lot. Okay. Quite a number of times it is being milking money. That's what the end result has always been. So it's how you initiate an attack on ransomware. That's as simple as that. So undetected have gone past. Yes, I've known scenarios where it's been undetected for a longer period of time. But when it will be detected is only if they end up losing money. That's the only connection. So I've known use cases like an adversary came in at about 4th of January into the network, uh, which is a pretty big company operating out of South India, manufacturing company. And the attack happened on the 21st of April. And 4 days, everything was shut for them. Literally everything was shut for them. And then they resurrected. They had backups and other things, but it took them almost 3.5 months for them to bring back their original work structure. And this is hard reality to accept it. Okay. And now what happened with these kind of companies, the biggest problem is who is advising them a lot, a person who has got breach investigation experience or not. So it's all about how you wanted to look into it as a matter. And it doesn't generally don't go undetected for a longer period of time because they won't be able to milk what they want. It's only data. I mean, said I don't care about my data being out. Okay. And if my data is not available for me and it has got some confidentiality and somebody owns the data, then I'm really scared because that's hard reality, right? We've got a lot of compliance received today with police departments, but all of these things are almost equivalent to similar scenario as how you take it. So if it goes undetected, it doesn't happen generally, as simple as that. Very rarest of the cases, if it goes undetected, then it goes undetected forever. but that I'm not sure whether somebody is being able to do something with that data as it is. So that's of course that's my experience also at the same time coming in. We've never seen anything over like 6 months in normal times. Sure.
Okay, thank you. So that's done. And the next question is that, so there are different data types, different kinds of breaches. So do we require cybersecurity measurement or management according to the different types of breaches that we're working with?
Not really. I mean, that is something which is tailor-made for organizations as it is. And how much it's again, knowledge plays a very important role. So, what kind of knowledge you carry is what is going to reflect on the work that you're going to be doing it, right? So, you need to understand the entire network infrastructure. You need to know about how the applications work. As long as you're not aware of how the organization is working, then it becomes difficult for somebody to handle those scenarios. So it is either management nor technical persons. I mean, that's something you will probably be able to get going with your knowledge and experience. Yeah, as it is.
Okay, perfect. Great. We've gotten quite a lot of interest to enroll in the program as well. So I'm gonna end the poll right now. And yes, I will be launching another poll to get the entries for the certificate. Just give me a moment. Okay, so please enter your full name exactly as you would like to appear on the certificate. You do not need to add your email ID or any other detail. We will be generating the certificate and sharing with you on email in the next 48 working hours. In case if you're not able to access the poll, please drop us an email at webinars@simplilearn.net and we will be able to get back to you. Professor, while this poll is on, we can take like, a couple of final questions and yeah, wrap up the session. Okay, Sharath has a question on how does cybersecurity help to keep nationwide related data safe? Like, is there any firm in India handling the security for like that type of large data?
I mean, a lot of people are doing that. As a matter of fact, it's not like one company managing it is not happening so far. So we've got a lot of people handling data depending upon where it is. For example, Aadhaar is the largest database right now, I think, exists in the world, if I'm right, with respect to PII is concerned, right? And we've got what 97 percentage of people are already in Aadhaar, if I'm right, or maybe a little more than that. So one organization looking at it is not as we think, because there are quite a number of APIs that are in existence. So you want to connect Aadhaar, you want to check it out. Yes, it's possible. In fact, so far Aadhaar breaches have not leaked from Aadhaar as it is only by means of the APIs that are connected towards it. So right now there are plenty of organizations who still create APIs and we connect and then get verified with things. Because banks do that, NBFCs do that. I've seen telecom companies are doing that. In fact, if you wanted to get in, yes, you can still connect that and then start working it out. There are APIs there. But Aadhaar is one example. There are quite a number of things where it is also happening in line, but there's no single organization who performs big time tasks. It's always been number of organizations. In fact, if you're going to go with just one company, it's going to be called a single point of failure if something goes wrong. So that's why I said in one of the examples, never go with one tool across organization. I think I've seen a lot of people mentioning that I've got this tool and it is taking care of every aspect. So when you talk about cybersecurity framework, you have the identify, protect, detect, respond, recover, and you have the govern. All the 6 steps are being managed by one single vendor. Yes, it is possible. I'm not saying one vendor cannot provide everything, but what if that one vendor is breached or out of business for some reason? What you will do? Then you will eventually reach out to single point of failure. You will not know exactly what to do because all your people are trained on only one tool, one one family. So it's definitely not suggested to go with one uh, probably vendor at any point of time. So even we run our own company, I run my own company, it doesn't matter. You still have multiple people because it's for the welfare and not for just business as it is, because it's our data, right? We got to be literally clear about it. And Digital Personal Data Protection Act is coming in. I think a lot of people are going to cry, and I'm waiting to see that.
Okay, perfect. And the final question, how important are DLP and CLC while undergoing or understanding an attack?
See, data loss and protection is DLP is more of uh, individual user level access is what it's all about. Okay, I think the differentiation is what if you have a server and your data is there and that is taken from the server itself. So DLPs are for individuals to be monitored, or your data doesn't go out from an individual computer. But we are having a lot of places where your data is being, or your organization's data is being with. So it is good to have a DLP because you don't need to worry about your employee taking your data out, okay, or any of your consultants taking your data out. So it has got its limitations to work out with, and it could be one solution that you could rely on is not right. So you have one among the solutions. So you've got threat intelligence in SIEM SOAR, then you've got threat hunting SIEM and SOAR, then you have user behavior analytics SIEM and SOAR in. So similarly, you have DLP, you have privilege access management, you have identity access management. All of these things are individual solutions catering to specific needs. But you need many things like that to work together, and your output is generally being looked at it. So DLP is for individual devices. Your data is not being stolen or transferred or copied uh, unauthentic access levels. So its limitation, it has got its own limitation to operate. As simple as that. It's like, no, if you're gonna ask me to talk something else, say if there is a physics class and you want me to talk about, I'll be the biggest idiot in the class because I have no connection on current physics. I may talk about common sense of physics, but not as physics, right? Because I'm working on the field of cybersecurity. So it's like that kind of a difference. I have my own limitation. Everybody has it. So tools also has its own limitation as it is. Like I can also read one. So I'm a bug bounty hunter working online, Buckroad, HackerOne, other platforms, found bugs in Microsoft, NASA, and other companies related to RCE, broken access control, and broken authentication. Type like business logical flaws, as well as I like manual testing right now. So in 21, my qualification is in inter. So what do you give suggestion to me? Uh, and am I enrolled in graduation or do so? Okay, see, bug bounty or any of these things are more relevant to application security. Okay, so if you wanted to become an application security professional, yes, you get going there because the channel is like this. You have threat modeling, you have secure coding, you have source code review, you have this is how the steps go, right? So you already have experience in doing that, then I think you should become an application security professional. Don't just become a vulnerability analyst because that job is also going out because of AI again, right? So you can become an application security professional, try to understand the entire ambit of application security. You will have a bright future going forward. And I think the program has got very good application security component incorporated into it. And if you can also learn both sides of application, where is it being hosted, how is it being monitored, like network security, networks infra, and how is it being monitored from the SIEM SOC operations. You may understand the holistic view of the program one, and also how you could put that into practice, right?
Professor, there's also a
Yeah.
question on whether the learners will be learning according to EU regulation or Indian regulation.
See, there is, I wouldn't suggest Indian regulation slash EU regulation. EU is again, just because GDPR came in first, people talk about EU. Because India is coming late, it doesn't mean that as it is. So I wouldn't call regulation as any particular regulation. This is what we call them best practices in the program. In fact, the program is based on technology techniques. So data security is from a risk and compliance perspective is not part of this particular thing as it is. It's more core of cybersecurity. That's what I would probably say. So you don't learn either way in this program. You learn the core of it, which means it is holistically you will get to cover. You can align that with any standards, any protocols, however you wanted to practice with. Because protocols is more of rules and regulations. And then you have standards, which is coming out from where you want to follow with the SOPs and stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I think with that, I will end the certificate poll as well. I see a couple of concerns regarding not being able to access the poll in case you don't have the Zoom app or you've logged in from your phone, then the poll might not have been accessible. Please don't worry about it. Just drop us an email on webinars@simplilearn.net and we'll be getting you the certificate. Great. I think that's a wrap. A huge thank you to you, Professor Harish, for an incredibly, informative, substantive session. Is there any final piece of advice that you'd like to share with everyone here?
I mean, just apply common sense. That's one thing which is missing in pretty much everyone. I was very shocked to read a research document 8, 9 months ago. I keep reading research documents on an average one a day. This research came out from CMU, and they said that we already use only 3% of our brain. That's what common man is all about. And we are only using 3% of the 3% because of ChatGPT today. So ChatGPT or Gemini or anything else. So you can rely on it. I'm not saying that you don't use any of the GPTs of the world today, but don't completely rely on it. I think you are, as an individual, as a human, we've got better intelligence to be used. Relying on cyber threat intelligence is also something more relevant towards it. So I think use your common sense more if you really wanted to succeed in the world of cybersecurity. I think that's the only thing which I carry in myself. I believe so, because I can't get updated every day and everything. But if you're going to ask me a question, I'll tell you, I'll answer you bullseye onto it. And you go and refer to the book, it'll be the word that I've said there. It's just because of common sense. So I think, yeah, that would be my piece of advice to anyone, whoever is actually planning to live a world in the digital environment as far as zeros and ones are concerned. Thank you.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you so much, Professor. So the intelligence gap that we discussed today, it's real, it's growing, and it represents one of the most significant career opportunities in technology right now. So the tools, the credentials, and the support to bridge that gap are available through the program that we have discussed in detail today. For any follow-up questions or any feedback, please do reach out to us at webinars@simplilearn.net. And our advisors will also be reaching out to anyone who has expressed interest in enrolling in the program. So yes, with that, we'll end the session. Take care. Thank you everyone for being here and stay safe online. And we'll see you in the next webinar soon.
Thank you. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you.